I've got one flame to burn, one race that I can say I ran.
Good morning and welcome to the 21047.com podcast. My name is Keith Cartwright. I am the host of this show, and I'm really glad to have you along listening in today wherever it is that you're listening, and whenever it is that you might be listening in. I'm just glad that you are here today. This episode is sponsored by my dear friend Robin Larkin. Robin is a longtime supporter of mine through Patreon. Patreon is a place where you can go and financially back the efforts that I have through 21047 and other creators who just have these passions, these visions, that the financial support allows them to pursue that in some bigger ways. Maybe it gives them additional resources, additional time. That's certainly the case for me. The Patreon contributions give me time away from other work that I was doing and frees me up to do this and spend more and more time doing it and sharing more and more of these stories. So thank you, Robin. Robin is one of my longest time supporters, so I'm really grateful for her. If you're interested in checking out how you might help back me through Patreon, just go to my website, 21047.com, TWOTIM 47.com, and click on the Support Me tab, and then that will give you some more information about Patreon and link you to the Patreon page where you can learn more about how you can help me and then some of the things that you can get in return for doing so. I also just want to take time to think of Robin, think of her mom. Her mom has been going through this courageous battle with brain cancer, so just ask everybody to be praying for Robin, for her mom. Keep them in your thoughts and in your prayers. Just hold them tight and close to you as they battle this thing together, her and Robin's mom and the whole family. And so we've been thinking about her lately. This story today, I'm really excited to bring to you. It was a story directed to me by another one of my Patreon supporters, Lachelle Head. And so she had this teacher in her community, actually a teacher at a high school where both of her daughters went to, and there was a video of Lori Latham. This is who the interview is with today. And Lori, through just happenstance, she was out there running a adventure obstacle course race with her husband and spotted a man who was assisting a blind man in this obstacle course. And then just one thing led to another through this whisper, I guess. I consider these things whispers, these things that get put on your heart. It got put on Lori's heart in a way that she suddenly could picture herself helping one of her high school students, Miller Ballard, in his first run. And what's incredible about that, and what was incredible about that image, was that Miller is blind, and Miller is on the spectrum. He's been diagnosed with Aspergers. So for Lori to go from out there sort of in this obstacle course, just enjoying her day, to seeing this and then an idea put on her heart to do something very helpful for one of her students, it just is more evidence just that God is using these running journeys of mine, and I think of other people, to weave stories together to bring to life some things that he really wants to see happen in this world. And it just, reminds me that a lot of us are out there running and we're in these running stories, but they are stories that go way, way, way beyond running. So I encourage you to listen to my interview with Lori, pick up some of the signs that she received and then she was bold enough to act on. I think there's a lot of days we're out there and we see things and hear things and maybe get some ideas, some wish lists. Wish I'd do this, and boy, wish I could respond to this thing in this sort of loving way. But for whatever reason, we don't do it. I hope you'll take this story, Lori's story, and use that as inspiration to maybe take that next step. Go beyond where we often stop with these ideas. Be moved by the impact it had on Miller's life, and then the ripple effect of that, right? I mean, this thing turned into not just her helping a student, it turned into a story that hundreds, maybe thousands even heard, and hopefully have been encouraged by, like me. So I can't wait to share this story with you. Here's my interview with Lori Latham. Well, I want to welcome Lori Latham to the 21047.com podcast. So welcome, Lori.
Hi.
So one of the first things, we're going to dig into the story that a friend of mine sent me a link about. And so we're going to dive into that here in a minute. But the first thing I just wanted to ask, because this is a running story. So how did you get your start running?
Oh, wow. Well, it used to be when I was growing up. I cheered in high school, and the only time I ever ran was for tryouts and when they made us run to warm up for practice, and it was a very short distance, like a mile or less. And I never, ever liked running at all, and I was one of those that I didn't run unless I was being chased. And it wasn't until after I had my daughter, who is now 7, that I actually started to run. And I would just kind of run on the treadmill. And my mom asked me to join her for a run for her work. They did the Ray Tanner home run. It was probably in 2011 or 2012. And I ran that, and I'm very competitive. So I did the 5K, and I left because I saw that I was like 30th place at that time. And so I was kind of upset, but my mom called me and told me that I actually won first in my age group, and I was completely shocked. So that kind of motivated me to continue running.
And so then did you move up the distance? Did you stick to that 5K, or where did it go from there?
Yeah, for a while I stuck to the 5K distance. I really wanted to try to get faster. And so I did the Ray Tanner home run the year after that, and I would run little 5Ks here and there and do really pretty well. And let's see, 4 or 5 years ago, another teacher moved to Chapin High School, or she started teaching at Chapin High School, and we went to a conference in the summer together, and we were talking about running and working out and things like that. And I told her that I would like to run a half marathon, and that I had actually signed up for the Diva Half Marathon in Myrtle Beach. I just thought it would be a fun time. And so that kind of snowballed, and we ended up challenging seniors to join us to train for a half marathon. And we ran a half marathon from Travelers Rest to Greenville. It was the Mom of Multiples by Greenville Hospital System. It was a great run because it was pretty much all downhill. But we challenged them, and we trained for it, and we ran for that. So yeah, my goal was going to be to run a full marathon, but I tore my ACL during a pep rally playing basketball. So that has kind of kept me from running as much as I want to.
Oh, I hate to hear
but
that.
Next year's my fault. Yeah.
Well, good. Well,
it's been a crazy little time.
No, well, we were talking before we started this. You are very, very busy. Well, I want to follow up in a little bit after we talk about Miller. I do want to talk about that senior challenge because I'm fascinated by that too. But so I'm going to start with sort of the end of the story, and then we'll work our way back. So my friend Lachelle, she has a daughter, I think, that goes to your high school. So
yeah, I taught both of her daughters.
Oh, awesome. They are great folks.
Yeah.
But she sent me a link to this story, and the story was that you were training for, now I think you have already completed, you ran a 5K with one of your students, Miller Ballard.
Uh-huh.
And the part of the story that is so inspiring is that Miller is blind and has been diagnosed with Aspergers. And so you decided that you and him were going to run this 5K together. So, the first thing is, where did that idea come from? What led you to decide, I think I want to do this?
Well, that is such a funny story, and it has almost come full circle since all of this has kind of happened, since that video was released. My husband and I, along with running, because running can kind of get monotonous and boring, we like to add a little bit of adventure, so we do obstacle course races also. And we've done the mud run, and that was great, and we decided that we were going to try out a Spartan run. So in December of 2016, my husband and I did the Spartan Super in Jacksonville, Florida, And it's a run that's about 9 miles with 25 to 30 obstacles in it. And it was really challenging. And I can remember running through the trail, and they basically, it was almost like they took a bush hog and kind of made a path for us, because there were all these stumps and pieces of tree that were still left over that were really sharp. And so we had to be really careful when we ran. And it just so happened that we ran past this man that was blind and his guide. And I thought to myself, oh, how sweet, how cool is that this guy's running this race. And so we run past him, and again, the terrain was very tricky. It took them a little while to get through, and we get to the end of the run, and we're walking around, and you're supposed to hang out and have a good time. Well, a little while later, I turn around, and here's this guide with his blind runner, and he's got a chest full of medals. And I thought, he does this quite often, obviously. And I thought to myself, Miller's, he's visually impaired. He's blind. He can't really see anything at all. He can see, I think, a little bit of light, and that's it. But he can't see any kind of objects or anything. And I said, if he can be guided through this rough terrain, I know I can get Miller to run. And at this point in time, he was in my anatomy class, and I thought to myself, if I can get a student that can't see all of the very complex cellular structures that I'm talking about, there's no reason why I can't get him to run also. So he is, just really amazed me with all of his abilities. And, because of being on the autism spectrum, he doesn't toot his own horn. He doesn't, he concentrates and he does what he's asked to do. And he's just an awesome kid that other people don't know how awesome he actually is.
And so when you took this idea to him, I assume he wasn't much of a runner, and a 5K wasn't on his radar. I'm curious, when you introduced this idea to him, what was his reaction?
Okay. It wasn't. That's basically what it is. Okay, let me think about that. And, that's his little thing. He's very, short, sweet, and to the point. And a lot of things he says he'll have to think about that, or I'm not sure, or, he'll say things like that. But I told his vision teacher, Miss Pierce, and I also told his parents, because they go to our church also. And his father works out sometimes in a men's group on Saturdays. And so I, told them that this is what I'm interested in. And I got really excited about it. And the first thing I did was I was thinking, how can I, run with him? How can I let him hold on? I thought that maybe holding my arm, it would kind of be awkward for us to run. So I couldn't find anything. And my husband had tube socks, like long pairs of socks. So I just tied a pair of socks together. And that's what we've used for our to help guide him. And we first started walking around school, getting him used to starting and stopping and paying attention to what the sock was doing. And that was just changing movements.
And so how long did you all train for the race?
Well, we started before school got out, but I tore my ACL. And so training had to halt a little bit. I originally wanted him to run the half marathon. And so that's why I had started kind of in January of last year, walking him around the school and getting him ready for that. So that was kind of interesting. I had my ACL tear, and I was out of school for 6 weeks. And then when I came back, I couldn't really do anything. And I told my orthopedist, because my physical therapist allowed me to start running on the treadmill, and I got so excited because I was like, yes, I can start running again. I can start training Miller. And then my orthopedist, he didn't slap me on the hand or anything, but he told me that he wanted me to stop running. So that crushed me. And then my next visit to my orthopedist, I told him, I said, I'm going to be training a student to run, and I need to be able to run. And he's like, I don't think it's a good idea. And I said, well, we don't go fast. And so he said, well, it's okay, just start slow. So I started kind of slow. And then when we came back to school was when we really started to really train in September.
And so through this process, did you see any changes in Miller in terms of who he was or his confidence?
Yeah, so Miller, again, being on the autism spectrum, little things will aggravate him and bother him. And the first 2 times we ran, the first time actually we ran 3 laps around the track at Chapin High School, and it took him maybe 18 minutes, 17 minutes to run 3 laps. And so I was like, wow, this is gonna take a lot. And we had to take a lot of breaks, and he had to stop and get water, and I would push him, let's run for 30 seconds or a minute or whatever, and then we could walk. And then we started getting further in the training. He was getting a little bit faster, and I can remember one morning it was very misty outside, and water is one of the things that bothers him. He doesn't like to be around rain, and he doesn't like to be wet, I guess. And so I had to kind of talk it up to him. And so now when we run, I remind him, hey, Miller, we have to train in all kinds of weather. So we've trained in cold weather. We've trained now in misty, kind of almost drizzling weather. And now he's kind of more accepting of it. Yes, I've got to, because we never know what it's going to be like on the race day. That's what he'll tell me. So that's definitely one thing that's changed. I think he's better able to cope with things that used to aggravate him a lot more. And he's gotten a lot faster. And anytime you talk to him about running, he gets a smile on his face, and he seems to be a lot more excited about it.
And so you all you've completed the race, right? That was a couple of weekends ago in Columbia. So
yes, we did the Run Hard 5K in Columbia.
And what was Miller's reaction when he finished this thing?
Well,
did he understand the magnitude of what had happened?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if he understands the magnitude, or he doesn't communicate that he understands the magnitude, if that means anything. But our training run, the day that we filmed the video, that was one of the days that we were training. It was our last big training, and we ran 3.1 miles, and he did it in 36 minutes and 40 seconds.
Wow.
And so which I was so excited about. We did high fives. We were super excited about it. Well, we did like a little mile on the treadmill, kind of making sure that we were ready to go 2 days before. And then on the day of the race, we start going, and I was just amazed because we were passing people, and he wasn't asking to slow down. He was just there. We took a water break twice. I wear a hydration belt, and 1 bottle's for him and 1 bottle's for me. So he only asked for water twice. And when we came on Main Street, I told him, I said, because he was getting tired, I said, Miller, we have 5 lights that we have to run through, and I'll count them as we go. If he can't see, he kind of needs that as a motivation, I guess. And so I was counting them down, and we got to the past the last light, and I told him that was the last light. We just got to get to the finish line. And I looked up and I saw the time, and we finished in right over 34 minutes.
That is awesome.
So his pace, just, I don't know, it was adrenaline or what, but I just started crying. I have the worst pictures of me at the end of the race, but we have one that's really sweet where we're hugging each other, and you could tell on my face that I'm just crying about it. But I was so happy for that.
Yeah, that was my other question. I wonder what it did to you, this whole process. What did it mean to you? Because this starts with an idea. You and your husband are running this obstacle course. You see this blind man, you think kind of a neat deal. I think I'd like to do that. But it sounds like it really grew into something special for you.
Yes, it did. And I'm glad you said that. What's really interesting is I got a random message on Facebook, and it was from a guide. And he sent me a message, and he said, I wonder, why did you start doing this? And I said, well, we saw this two men running in Spartan, and come to find out it was him and the guy he leads. He's called Blind Pete, and it was them. And so now we're friends on Facebook, and we communicate back and forth, and so that's been really fun. But it's just rewarding because you said that your wife was a teacher, and you know that being a teacher is really hard, and sometimes you don't always see immediate effects that you have on your students. I teach seniors, and so what I see with my students is that after they've graduated, then they appreciate me, how my classes, because I teach anatomy and biology, so it's not till when they're in college that they show any appreciation typically. But this was like an automatic, and it's big. It's like Miller, definitely that's my biggest thing, but you never know how many people you're impacting outside of that, like his family and his other teachers. And, we all work really hard so that way we show that Miller is a great kid and that he has so much potential and he could do a lot more than what people probably give him credit for.
No,
that's rewarding.
I got goosebumps you talking about the Facebook message. And I mean, I've talked with some friends a lot this week about my personal running journey and how God just keeps weaving these, I don't know, bigger and bigger stories through it, and stories that catch me by surprise. And it just sounds like he's weaved one really powerful through you. And here I am inspired by that video. And, when you trace it all back to your, encounter there, a lot of people's lives have been touched. So.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope that people see that, because sometimes, especially if you don't succeed at things and it's, you try so hard and you continuously don't succeed, a lot of people can become very disheartened and want to give up, But, it's like I tell my students, you never know what's going on in someone else's life. We all need to try to boost each other up. Maybe we're having hard times. And, again, Miller doesn't communicate all of his feelings that well. And so, does anyone really know how he's feeling? We've got to, boost everybody up, including those that can't express how they're feeling.
Absolutely. What do you think it is about? So I've been in my own running journey. I ran my first marathon a couple of years ago, and it's been a really, I was almost 50 when I started running, and I was very much like you. I hated running.
Yeah.
But here I am. But I was telling somebody today, I don't really run as much even though there are a lot of obvious health benefits and I feel great. Mm-hmm. But the running community has just been, I don't know, just this welcome surprise in my life. And I find in that community so many people inspired to do things like you've done with Miller, and people just seem to use running to pour into each other's lives. I'm just curious if, why you think that is, if you have found that yourself in running and what it is about running.
Yeah, I think just like anything where you have a group of people, there's a sense of community. And, you never, for example, when we take our students to do the half marathon, we encourage them just like the rest of the running community. You have people that you need to cheer for that are running across that finish line. And, they might have been slower than you, but man, what a thing that you've accomplished by running 13.1 miles. And I think that that's kind of a view for most runners, is that it is a big accomplishment. And so we should congratulate and cheer for people that have done this, taken part in such activities. And like I said on Facebook with the guy, Joey Maglamori, and his runner, Blind Pete, they have kind of opened up a whole different community with obstacle course racing. And, he'll tag me in posts, and everyone that's in that community also, has really uplifting comments and, everything to say about his posts. So when you get a sense of community, whether that be in the place that you work or in the hobbies that you have or in things like we're doing with running, I just think it makes it all that more better when we participate in them.
So 25 seniors ran the half marathon. Did I hear you right?
Yes, 25.
Now, how did that get started? And how do you keep them motivated? Are you involved in the training of those seniors? Right.
Yeah. So it's really tough. We have to kind of bribe them with running swag. They get a really cool pullover that is embroidered with 13.1. They get a long sleeve shirt that's got their last name on the back. They get running leggings. And I can take a little bit of credit for that, but the most credit goes to a fellow colleague named Billy Williams, and she's actually our district's Teacher of the Year. She is amazing, and she just really knows what to do to motivate the kids. So that's one way that we motivate them. We also, we started off the season, I guess I should call it, with 60 kids that were interested. And so we told them, this is going to be hard, but in order for you to be successful, you have to train. And so we offer training sessions. She would offer 1 day a week for a long run, and I would offer a day a week. And when it got to the point where it was those longer miles, like 8 miles and things like that, I would invite them to come run with me in Columbia or at the dam on the weekends, and she would do the same. But we started doing this. This is our 4th group, so 4 years ago. And so the first year it was 12 kids that finished, and now we have 25 that have finished. So it's really rewarding in that extent. Also, we take them, like this year we went out to eat. We spend the night in a hotel, and that way we can get up really early and go head out to the race, so we don't have to go from Chapin to Columbia. But the kids just really love it, and I teach some of them, and they would whine and complain that, that 10-mile run was so hard, or I don't know if I can do this. And you just have to, as a sponsor or coach, you just got to talk them up and tell them that they can do it. If you can run 10, you can run 13, So they all did, and they had a lot better times than they thought they would.
Why is it important for y'all to get them to do that? I'm just curious. I've never heard of, obviously, there's random seniors here and there, but as a class group to get 25 of them to go run a half marathon, why is it important to you and Billy to get them to do that?
Again, so sometimes being a teacher, you don't see all of the positive effects immediately. But with this, it's in such a short period of time because we start training in November, kind of after we get back from Thanksgiving break. And it's rewarding to see how much those students have grown. They start off, their first run that they do as a group is 2 miles, and they have to send their time, and we tell them you got to be around 12 minutes or less. And they're really slow at the beginning, and then they progressively get better and better and better with training. And I just think that having those types of relationships with your students, besides just doing the academic portion in the classroom, is really important. We have kids that are not athletes by any means that are doing the half with us. So I think that that's awesome. It also shows them, hey, we can run a half marathon. We can do almost anything. And not everyone sticks with it. And I have some of them that say, I'm so glad I did this as a high school senior. I'm not ever going to do it again. Maybe I'll run some 5Ks or some 10Ks. But then we have some that continue running, which I think is wonderful.
Yeah, I just ran across this piece today when I was digging into your story a little more on Facebook, and just saw this piece about these other seniors running that half marathon, and I just happened to have written something this morning where I said, so I just finished the Little Rock Marathon a couple of weeks ago, and it was on the heels of, I went to Houston and tried to run the marathon there, and I came up short. I couldn't keep up after 18 miles, so they pulled me off. And so then I went to Little Rock, and it was sort of redemption, and I got it done. But, one of the things I said this morning was that, crossing a marathon finish line gets me to thinking much more about what I can do versus what I just did. And I'm thinking, what a powerful way for seniors to kind of finish off school and then go into the quote unquote real world. with this sort of mindset of possibilities. I mean, they've done something. I don't know. I look back and think, man, I wish I'd have run a half marathon a lot earlier in my life.
I know. And that's what I have to tell some of them. I told the students, if you need me, because I was running the 5K with Miller, I said, if you need me, I'll be finished, and I can come motivate you, I'll cheer for you, I'll run with you. And I actually got a call from one of the students, and that student wanted to give up. And so I had the dad drive me. We drove all around Columbia, and I finally got to her at mile 9, and she was about to give up. And I just kept pushing her and telling her you could do it. And I said, I can't imagine how my life would have been different if I would have tried to do this as a senior in high school. And just lifting her up and motivating her to try to keep going. And she ended up finishing, and she was right at that 3-hour mark. And I couldn't have been more proud of her than I was any of the other students that ran, because she didn't give up. And I think that training goes into it. I think that's one thing that the kids realize, is that you can't just go do something and not train for it. And so it kind of helps them with discipline of, how am I going to get whatever task it is that I want to do accomplished? And sometimes, especially for running, it is that training component that is important.
I can't tell if it's the teacher in you that comes out, or if it seems like there's a little coach in the background there too. You just seem to be a natural at getting the best out of people.
I try. I am a personal trainer. I'm like a jack of all trades, I guess. But I do a little bit of personal training, and I just, again, I teach anatomy and biology in a class called Human Growth and Development, and I push my kids, and it's not an easy class, because I feel like maybe if not that I want my life any different, but what would have my possibilities have been if I were pushed more when I was in high school, because I breezed through and didn't have to do anything. And so I tell my students, it's not going to be easy. I'm going to challenge you, but that's only because I want to prepare you, because I was not prepared when I went to college. And I think that's where part of that motivation comes from, is that way I can help others prepare for what is to come. Because, a lot of times you'll see that, an X percentage of the freshman class in college don't go on. They finish, or they don't finish college. And I think it's a sad statistic. And so if we can give our students and our kids the tools to be successful by encouraging them and teaching them that life's not always going to be easy, but it's how you react to those things that makes you a better person and helps you to achieve your goals. And I think that we've won in that case.
Absolutely. Your students are lucky. They
don't always think so.
Yeah, well, we'll go back to that part where they'll come back in a couple of years, and that appreciation will be there. I read this quote that you said in part of one of the articles with Miller there. It says, we all have our own obstacles. It is important that we don't get into the I can't mindset. Rather, we should find a way to change the how can I mindset. How do we do that? Yeah. What's the best way for me or for any of us to avoid the one and get into the other?
Yeah, I think that I like to consider myself a glass half full. Or even, it doesn't even have to be full. At least you got a little bit of something in there to work with. And, with training, I told you I'm in school right now. So being consistent and working hard to achieve your goals, I think, is really important. And so I think that when you say, oh, I can't do this, it's, how can I do this? Maybe I need to rearrange my schedule so that way I can make sure that I accomplish this task for me to be able to set a goal. I think that sometimes a lot of us can come up with excuses as to why we can't make something happen. But if we take a step back and look at the big picture and how important some of our goals are, that we'd be willing to make those adjustments in life that we need to make.
Well, Lori, I am just really grateful that we got to have this conversation. I am rooting for that knee to heal up. So you think 2019 maybe you'll be able to tackle that marathon?
Marathon, I'm hoping, and I told my husband, and we're close to 40. We're knocking on 40's door. And so he used to say, no, I'm not going to run a marathon. Half is all I want to do. And so now I've gotten him to kind of want to run a marathon with me. So hopefully by the time he's 40, which is coming up real soon, we'll be able to run a marathon. So that's what I'm shooting for, and get back into obstacle course racing, because I've been kind of weary with my knee to not do anything. But Miller's next goal is going to be a 10K. I've already told him, and he seems to be okay with that.
Go Miller. I'm a big Miller fan.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of the two of you. So how about the other students? I meant to ask that. What that were at the race, did they all kind of rally around Miller that day?
Well, Miller finished first, and the half marathon started before the 5K. But afterwards, we all took pictures together, and it was just awesome. And it was really cool because when we got to the finish line, his PE teacher, Coach Jenny, said that she was trying to get a video of her friend that was also running the race. And she noticed that she wasn't prepared, but she noticed Miller and I ran by, and she was in utter shock that we had finished the race and so fast. And so she was there. His vision teacher, Miss Pierce, was there. Obviously, his parents. He had other family members there, and we all kind of rallied around him. We were excited, and I think he ate his first Chick-fil-A biscuit after that, because that's what we got to have. And then we just kind of waited for the rest of the students to finish, and it was really awesome to see them all together, and they were very, very supportive of Miller as well.
Well, I got to tell you, just through your story and then my friend Lachelle, Chapin High School sounds like a very cool place to go to school. It just seems like there's a lot of school spirit, a lot of good, healthy camaraderie, community. You use the word community. It seems like a great community.
Yeah. And family, and you just got some students, if they aren't finding their niche, you just got to look. I mean, there's all kinds of clubs and organizations, and we really, as faculty and staff, try to think outside of the box to make sure that all of our students' needs are met, whether that be academic or social emotional needs.
Yeah. So. Well, that is one blessed group of students. So I am grateful to talk to what has to be their busiest teacher. You've just got so much going on.
Well, you could imagine that we got a lot of busy teachers.
Yeah. Well, I am grateful that you took time out to share the story. I look forward to sharing it with others and continuing to inspire folks. And hopefully folks will keep their eyes open for their own signs out there when they're running that may prompt them to do something like you've done, because it's made a big difference.
Definitely include everyone, because everyone can do it.
Absolutely. Lori, you have a great night. Thank you again.
I will. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that conversation with Lori as much as I enjoyed having it. Boy, what a delightful soul, and just a great story. I feel happy for Miller Ballard and all of the students that get to work with Lori. She just seems to have a real heart for pushing them. And, just looking back on my own youth, I am very appreciative of all the teachers and the adults who poured this passion into me with this idea that I was capable of more. I could really relate to Lori's sort of path through high school of, being fairly unchallenged. High school came pretty easy to me, and so I didn't put as much effort into it as I probably should have and could have, certainly. And that's why, in addition to the beautiful Miller Ballard story, I just really was taken by this idea of these 25 seniors off running a half marathon. I said it in the interview, and I think it's worth repeating that, I've discovered so much about myself. I've just seen so many doors in life open to possibilities that I never imagined through my own running journey, crossing the finish line now of several half marathons. And, for those who may be listening for the first time, my running journey has been a journey of, it's not love-hate, it's really hate-hate. But I hate the act of running, but I just love this feeling that comes, this sense of accomplishment, this sense of, boy, I can do far more than I ever dreamed that I could do, that comes with crossing some of these finish lines. Most recently, I crossed the finish line of the Little Rock, Arkansas marathon, and that after I couldn't finish my marathon in Houston. So there's just so much that comes with crossing these finish lines that I think, boy, if I'd have had that when I was a high school senior, just right then and there, do something, be pushed to do something, encouraged to do something that I had previously thought would be impossible, that I knew would be hard, but then to do it, I think that's a perfect time for our young people to pull something like that off. So hats off to Lori, and it sounds like Billy, who take on that. I said it in the interview. Chapin High School sounds like a very, very cool place to go to school. There's some lucky students there, surrounded by what sounds like an awful lot of caring adults that care most about putting them in a position to succeed in life. And God bless Lori for, looking at that motto in a all-inclusive way, for her to be out there running and seeing what she saw and picturing Miller and just realizing that here was an opportunity to push him in a direction of success, in a direction of accomplishment. It speaks a lot about who she is, and it sounds like she's surrounded by a lot of people there at Chapin that support that way of thinking, that encourage that kind of passion. So teachers are heroes. We say it all the time. It's cliche, but if you just look at the role that one adult is going to have in the life of that young man, and then just by doing so, the ripple effect it's had to me and others, and the encouragement and inspiration, you just never know. That's why I've been lately just harping on this idea of just do something, just take a step in the direction of helping, in the direction of love, and just see what kind of story God will weave with that. They are powerful most of the time, so just do it. The old Nike slogan, just do it. Yeah, well, I think it's very powerful in this case, so just do it. So anyhow, thank you, Lori. Thank you for agreeing to that conversation. She was actually sitting in a parking lot at her daughter's soccer practice, I think, so she's very busy. I appreciated her squeezing the time in. So anyhow, if you want to check out any more of these kind of stories, these podcasts, you can go to my website, 2tim47.com, TWOTIM47.com. There's blog posts there and several recent podcast interviews, as well as how you can link back to all of my episodes. So I encourage you to do that if you have any interest. And again, if you're interested in checking out and supporting me through Patreon, you can go to the same website and just click on the Support Me tab and check out your options there. So anyhow, thank you for listening in today. I hope you all have a great week. Get out there and run hard. If running's just not what you're up to this week, maybe get out. There's a lot of big races. I have a lot of friends racing in Virginia Beach at the Shamrock races this weekend. And so there's been many times I've just gone out there and cheered people on, cheered people who are tackling something that's difficult, tackling something that's going to open up doors of possibility to them. So it's fun to see those faces as they cross the finish line or see them out on the course. So go cheer somebody on. And if running's not your thing, you're welcome here. I think there's some stories that transcend running into just basic human heart, human interest stories. So you're welcome here too. You don't have to run. We won't make you. Just come back. You all have a great week.